They used to call me the Razor of the Void. 39 successful hunts across 8 systems. 14 different species. Not one failure. But the only ones I ever truly enjoyed hunting were the humans. Not because they were strong. Not because they were clever. But because they were loud, stubborn little beasts who never knew when they'd lost. And that made the hunt fun. My name is Draak'Thul, born of the Zoraxian clutch, veteran of the Thorn Wars, and certified apex hunter under the Galactic Bounty Codex. You've probably heard my name whispered in colonies on the fringe. Maybe even carved into bounty boards in blood. I don't take every contract. Just the ones that challenge me. The ones that make the other hunters flinch. And when the guild handler transmitted the latest target, I almost laughed. Reyes. Human male. Age. Unknown. Last confirmed sighting. Terra Nova Moon. Sector 11A. Status. Extremely dangerous. Bounty. Triple tier. They included a note. Proceed with caution. Multiple hunter teams failed to return. I read it twice. Still smirked. I've hunted humans before. 37 captures. 2 kills. They fight like cornered animals. Frantic, bloody, desperate. But desperation means you make mistakes. And mistakes are my specialty. My ship, Black Owl, cut through voice space and silence. I prepared like I always do, mapped terrain, studied thermal signatures, reviewed psychological profiles. This Reyes was ex-military, disavowed, trained in guerrilla warfare. Nothing I hadn't seen before. Nothing I couldn't crush. Velen, my second-in-command, asked if I was sure about this one. She's seen hunters go after humans and not come back. I told her what I always say. The difference between prey and legend is whether or not I'm bored. Still, I'll admit something now, something I didn't dare think at the time. There was a flicker of unease in the back of my mind. A static hum that wouldn't go away. Not fear. Not yet. Just a whisper. What if this one is different? But I ignored it. Strapped on my armor. Loaded my rifles. And set course for the last known location of a human named Reyes. A ghost. A myth. And soon, I thought. My prize. But I didn't know then that this hunt would make me the last one standing. The one left to run. The one they would whisper about next. The moon they called Terra Nova was unremarkable. Sparse vegetation. Craggy outcroppings. Atmosphere just thick enough for boots-on-ground ops. A good place to hide. A better place to kill. I landed the Black Owl just beyond a ridge line, cloaked, of course. Didn't want to scare him off too early. The readings were faint. No heat trails. No movement. But the tracker pinged a signal. Reyes, last position, 21 hours ago. Good. Still fresh. I deployed the scanners. No footprints. No tool residue. No signs of disturbance. Which was impossible. Humans always leave a mess. They sweat. They bleed. They scratch their initials into everything like they're afraid the stars will forget them. But here? Nothing. Just wind, dirt, and silence. Velen monitored me from orbit. Picking up anything? She asked. He's close. Hiding. At least, that's what I told myself. Because the longer I stood there, the more the shadows began to feel wrong. Still. Dense. Like they were watching me back. I moved through the canyon slowly, placing motion trackers along the path. Standard sweep pattern. I've done it 100 times. But every time I turned around, I swore something had moved. Just out of sight. Just behind me. That's when I found it. A campfire ring. Cold. Dead. But human. There was a tin cup. Burnt fabric. And scratched into the stone beside it. Almost had me. 3 words. Scraped by hand. Fresh. He'd been here. Recently. And he'd seen me coming. My HUD flickered. Once. Then again. Signal interference. Tracker distortion. Could have been terrain. But I knew better. Someone was jamming me. He was jamming me. Velen's voice crackled in my ear. We're losing signal lock on your beacon. Something's bouncing your telemetry. I answered without hesitation. He's here. Watching. I doubled back to the perimeter I set. The trackers were gone. Not destroyed. Not triggered. Removed. Quietly. Cleanly. I found one planted inside the tree behind me, pointing directly at my back. That was the moment the realization crept in like frost through bone. This wasn't a hunt. It was bait. He hadn't run. He hadn't hidden. He'd been leading me, letting me feel in control, letting me get comfortable. I stopped walking. Listened. The wind stopped. No birds. No insects. No nothing. Just one sound. Soft. Close. Breathing. Not mine. I raised my weapon. Spun fast. Nothing. Just stone. Shadow. And a single boot print in the dust. Deep. Human. Fresh. Pointing toward me. Not away. Toward. I called for extraction. Velen didn't answer. I tried twice. Then 3 more times. Silence. That wasn't protocol. She always responded within 2 seconds. Always. Unless. I bolted back toward my landing point, covering terrain faster than I should have. Muscles tight. Breath short. Every sensor screaming, nothing detected. But my instincts? They screamed something else. The black howl loomed behind the ridge. The bay doors were open. That was wrong. We never left them open. I sprinted inside, weapon raised, heartbeat pounding in my throat. And stopped. Velen was on the floor, slumped against the wall. Helmet shattered. Neck bent. No scorch marks. No blood spray. Just one clean, silent kill. Her hand was still gripping her sidearm, but it hadn't been fired. The other 2 crew members? Gone. No signs of struggle. Just absence. And a message scratched into the control console with something very sharp. 1 down. 2 to go. This wasn't improvisation. This wasn't panic. This was a plan. He boarded my ship. Neutralized the crew. Left me alive. On purpose. I sealed the ship. Activated the fail-safe lockdown protocol. No more breaches. Then I checked the exterior cams. There, on the upper hull, right above the cockpit, a figure, crouched, still, facing directly into the camera lens. Reyes, staring at me, smiling. Then he raised his hand, 2 fingers up, 2, as in 2 left, and vanished. I backed away from the console, slowly, deliberately. This wasn't a hunt anymore. This wasn't a mission. It was a message. He was faster than my drones, smarter than my tech, and bold enough to breach the black howl without leaving a trace. I started to understand something right then. This wasn't about a bounty. This wasn't about revenge. This was sport, and I was the prey. I left the ship, drawing every weapon I had. Sensors up, shield active, every step placed with precision. But all I found were footprints, leading in a circle, around me, always around me, and in the center. One final message carved into a tree. I know how you think. Now let's see what you do when it's your turn to run. This wasn't the first time a human turned things sideways. I just never connected the dots. Never wanted to. Now I couldn't stop replaying them. The first was on Delta Sin, a mining world. Low gravity. Toxic storms. Perfect for catching fugitives off guard. Target. Human engineer. Low clearance. Civilian. Barely trained. No reason he should have survived more than a day. I tracked him across a ravine. He ran. Fell. Broke his leg. I watched from above as he tore off part of his shirt, tied his leg into a splint using a snapped pipe, and kept going, dragging himself for 3 kilometers. In the acid rain. On one leg. Laughing to himself. I thought it was adrenaline. Panic. But when I caught him, he looked me in the eye and said, "You think this is how I die? No. You'll have to try harder." I took him alive. Barely. He escaped 3 months later. I never told anyone. Then there was the outpost on Corvent Prime. Another human. Small. Young. Didn't even fight. Just stared at me as I cuffed him. But 5 days into transport, the ship systems failed. Power drained. Backup oxygen flickered. I assumed sabotage. But the techs never found the cause. When the lights finally came back, he was gone. 4 guards dead. One of them with a message scratched into his armor. "You should have let me sleep." Still, I ignored it. Wrote it off as statistical anomalies. Extreme stress responses. Luck. But now, with Velen dead, my systems jammed. The signs weren't whispers anymore. They were screams. Humans didn't operate by rules. They didn't calculate odds like my kind. Didn't wait for the safest moment to strike. They struck when it hurt the most. When you were sure they wouldn't. And they never fought fair. Most species fight to survive. Humans? They fight to win. Even when that means losing an eye, a limb, a life. Because they don't count the cost like we do. They count the purpose. I remembered a human prisoner once, after an ambush on Zinthri Station. He was half-blind, barely breathing, face broken. He looked up at me through blood and smiled. "You think we fight because we hate you? We fight because we love each other more." That stuck with me. Buried itself somewhere deep. And now, standing alone on this cursed moon, being hunted by one of them, I finally understood. They're not dangerous because of what they are. They're dangerous because of what they become when you come for them. I stopped trying to outsmart him, started trying to survive. It wasn't a hunt anymore. It was a game, a slow, deliberate unraveling. And I was the one unraveling. I followed a false signal toward an abandoned comms tower, half buried in the canyons. It looked like shelter, safety, a chance to regroup. Instead, it was the beginning of the maze. Tunnels, old maintenance shafts, burrowed deep underground, twisting, narrow, collapsing in places. No light, no map, just whispers in the dark. Not real whispers, not voices. Recordings, looped static, muffled breathing, footsteps that always sounded one corridor ahead. Every turn brought new discomfort. A scraping sound behind me, lights flickering for no reason, motion sensors pinging, but never showing anything. At first, I thought it was fear, but now, I knew better. This was intentional. I tried to reroute power. No response. I tried to override the wall's emergency lights. They flickered. Then a message appeared, burned into the floor by plasma. Still think you're the hunter? Then his voice. Calm. Steady. Crackling through the broken intercom system. You think it's your weapons that made you a predator? Your armor? Your tech? The fear you see in other species? Humans don't fear you, Draak. We learn you. I spun in circles, weapon raised. But the voice was everywhere and nowhere. Mocking. Cold. Controlled. I know how you think. How your breath quickens when the skin comes back empty. How your claw twitches just before you fire. I know where you'll stand when the tunnel splits. I know what you'll check first when something vanishes. You brought tools to a war of minds. I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran. And at every turn, the lights revealed more. My cruise gear. My own discarded armor plates. Footage of me, recorded just minutes earlier, from impossible angles. He was watching. Everywhere. I finally collapsed against a bulkhead, heart pounding, sweat pooling inside my armor. And that's when I saw him. Not face to face, but through a shattered viewing panel. Reyes, standing in the control room above, arms crossed, calm, just looking at me, like a biologist studying a new specimen. Then he leaned forward, pressed a finger to the glass, and mouthed one word. Run. My legs were trembling, not from exhaustion, not from injury, from something I hadn't felt in decades. Fear. I scrambled out of the tunnels, breath ragged, back to open terrain. No sun above, just clouded twilight. A storm forming. Of course there was a storm. I made for the clearing near the drop point. My only chance of sending a distress signal. One beacon. One pulse. If I could get there. But I stopped short. Because he was waiting. Reyes. Standing in the middle of the clearing. No helmet. No shield. Worn black jacket. One arm bleeding. The other holding a weapon that looked like it had seen hell and came back smiling. He didn't aim it. Didn't even raise it. Just looked at me and said, "You don't have to run anymore. I already know how this ends." I growled, raised my rifle, fired 3 shots. He moved before the first one finished charging, dropped into the dirt, rolled, and closed the distance like lightning with a vendetta. He was faster than I expected, cleaner, precise, and unshakable. I lashed out with my claws. He parried with his bleeding arm, twisted under me, and drove a blade into my side. Not deep, not lethal, purposeful. Pain flooded my chest. He leaned in close and whispered, "Now you know what it feels like to be hunted. We fought, if you can call it that." I swung. He dodged. I struck. He disappeared. He didn't fight to win. He fought to teach. Every hit landed where it would hurt, not kill. Every strike stripped away control. I hit the ground. Hard. He stepped back. Let me crawl. And as I did, as my blood stained the soil of that dead moon, he walked beside me, calm, measured, like a predator watching something weaker realize it's not the apex anymore. I asked him, why not finish it? He knelt beside me, eyes sharp, voice quiet. Because you'll carry this further than your corpse ever could. You'll tell them what happened. You'll be the warning. He placed a beacon beside me, synced it to my evac system, stood up. I used to be prey too, Draak. But the thing about humans is... He looked back, smiled just enough to chill bone. We adapt. And then he was gone, vanished into the storm. The medics found me slumped by the evac beacon, barely breathing, internal bleeding, 2 cracked ribs. Right eye swollen shut. They said I was lucky. They were wrong. Reyes let me live. And I knew exactly why. They tried asking questions during triage. What happened? Who did this? Where's your team? I said nothing. What could I say? That one human broke me? Outmaneuvered me? Let me live just to send a message. That I, the Razor of the Void, had become the warning? They put me in recovery on a clean Alliance medical ship. Sterile walls. Neutral lights. Security personnel outside my door. But it didn't help. Every night, I woke up to the feeling that someone was in the room. Watching. Waiting. I checked the corners. The vents. My pulse monitor. Nothing. Except a small scratch on the side of the bed rail. Not done yet. I stopped sleeping. Stopped eating. The doctors called it psychological trauma. Said I was reacting to stress. They didn't understand. They hadn't seen what I saw. Command tried to debrief me. I gave them one sentence. Don't send anyone else. They laughed. Until the next squad vanished. And the next. And the next. Reyes wasn't hiding anymore. He was hunting. Not for revenge. Not for sport. For memory. They'll keep sending hunters. They always do. There's too much money. Too much pride. But I know now. He wants them to come. He wants them to chase him. Because every one of them that goes after him comes back different. If they come back at all. Begin log. Draak'Thul, formerly Apex class hunter, Zoraxian clutch. If you're hearing this, you're either curious or stupid. Maybe both. You've got a name, a bounty, a human. And you're thinking, if I track him right, if I get close enough, maybe I'll be the one who finally brings him in. That's what I thought too. I was wrong. His name is Reyes. No titles. No rank. Just that. And if you see that name on a contract, you walk away. You burn it. You bury it under 10 layers of dead code. Because Reyes isn't prey. He's practice. Practice for something worse. I hunted him across a moon. He bled. He smiled. He let me win for a few hours. Just so I'd feel the panic when I realized I was never in control. He killed my crew. He watched me crawl. And when he had the chance to end me, he didn't. He said, I want them to know what's coming. So here I am, doing just that. They'll say you're the best, that you're smarter than the others, that you're faster, meaner, cold enough to finish the job. They told me that too. 39 confirmed captures. Flawless record. Then I met one man. And I ran. That's my record now. You think you know humans? You don't. They bleed easy, sure. Break bones like twigs. Die like anyone else. But when you hurt them, when you push them, when you corner them, they don't just survive. They remember. And then they become something else. Something worse. Something you can't track. Can't scare. Can't kill. I don't hunt humans anymore. Not because I can't. Because now, I know what happens when you try. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Not even my enemies.